I'm Andrew Spainhauer. I'm here with Anthony McMullin, the founding partner of McMullin Injury Law. And Anthony, I appreciate you taking some time to get on video and talk through some of these things. I want to give our clients a chance to get to know you a little bit, as your role as president and CEO of the firm has grown and become what it's become. Your daily interaction with clients is less than it once was, and the exposure there, and the firm has become this big thing that I don't know if you ever even fully envisioned. And so I want to, give our clients a chance to get to know you a little bit on a more personal level, and bug you with some questions, if that's all right.
Thanks. Yeah. This will be interesting. It'll be fun to tell some background and talk a little bit about the firm, and do it with a microphone right in my face. So not something that most lawyers are used to on a daily basis.
For sure. Yeah. I think it's how you look best.
Yeah.
So let's start with just getting to know you a little bit. You're from St. George. Talk to me a little bit about just where you come from in your childhood.
So I consider myself to be from St. George. I've been here my whole life. That's a little bit misleading because I was born in California, in Los Angeles, while my dad was in school to become a certified shorthand court reporter, basically. But I only lived in California for several months before we moved back to St. George, where my family's all from.
Okay.
So, when people ask me, I'm from St. George, even though, I was born in Los Angeles, from St. George. My entire family's from St. George. My ancestry go back to, I've got a grandmother that was born in Pine Valley, which is 30 minutes north of St. George. I've got long history of I could throw out names that, last names that people would know in St. George as being historical St. George names. But yeah, from here, grew up here, been here my whole life.
So the California thing was just a little blip, huh? You're not a California guy?
No. In fact, I was several months old when I moved back to St. George.
Yeah, so, I tell people I'm from St. George. I didn't move here till high school.
Yeah.
So what part of town did you grow up in?
So I grew up in two different areas. Grew up on what would be the west side of town, over by Valley View and Sunset area, kind of Green Valley area. I lived there until I was 8. My dad built a house over there. And then when I was 8, we moved basically up on the hill downtown, kind of by the office. Just, a few blocks from the office, and we're centrally located in town.
What was that like living in downtown St. George?
I mean, it was good for me because, growing up, I did a lot of jobs. So I had a paper route, mowed lawns, but then when I turned 14, I took a job down at the pizza factory, which is on Main Street, and it was only a few blocks from my house, so I could walk back and forth to work. I mean, as a kid, we ran all over town. I mean, downtown and, places that aren't even there anymore, through the growth. But yeah, it was good to be downtown. I used to run around up on the Red Hill, up by the Dixie Rock. As a kid, being 8, 10 years old, being able to do that is something doesn't happen anymore.
What places stand out to you that you would spend time like as a kid that aren't even in St. George anymore that I might not even be aware of?
Oh, I mean, there's, we used to walk down to the gas station, used to be called Handy Mart. I think it's where Ermita's is now.
Okay.
That used to be a gas station.
Okay.
We'd walk down there and, for 25 cents, you'd get a refill on your soda.
Okay. It was called Handy Mart?
It's called Handy Mart back in the day. There used to be a gas station where the Advenir Hotel is.
Okay.
On the corner right there.
Yeah.
That we would also go to. So just, walking down, going to gas stations that aren't, getting treats that aren't there anymore. We used to go, I remember in 6th grade, we used to go down to the 6th grade center, which was downtown, and we would, on Main Street, kind of by where Pico Rica Barbecue is, there used to be like a gaming store.
Okay.
Where you could go in and pay like $5 and play a Sega Genesis for like an hour.
Oh, really? Okay.
So things like that just aren't there anymore. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
So were you a frequent shopper there at the Sega Genesis
I've been there.
store?
I remember it only because it's such a weird concept that,
Yeah.
Nowadays people wouldn't understand. But yeah, no, I remember when the first Nintendo came out.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting old, but yeah, growing up in St. George was awesome.
So tell me about like family dynamics. So your dad works with us today, works in the litigation department. But tell me what would your parents say about you as a kid?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I was a good kid. I wasn't a great student, I guess. In school, I just didn't focus as much as I should have. And,
Really?
in like elementary school and that kind of stuff. I played a lot of sports. My dad was really into baseball, so I got into baseball at a young age, played baseball growing up. And my grandparents, so one set of my grandparents on my dad's side lived next door to us,
Okay.
up on the Red Hill. And then my mom's parents, my other grandparents, lived over by Red Hills Golf Course. And as a kid, both of my parents worked. So my dad worked full time. At the time, he worked for the 5th District Court as the court reporter. So he would be the guy in court, sitting in front, typing everything out, shorthand, everything that was said. So he was working all day. And then my mom, she worked in law firms, early in her career, and then eventually followed one of the lawyers over to be the general manager. She was the secretary, the assistant to the general manager of the Washington County Water District. And so she worked, my whole life growing up. So, in the summers, for example, when I was out of school, my parents both worked. And so I would spend all summer with my grandparents over by Red Hills Golf Course. I would stay at their house and I just played golf all day.
Okay.
And ran around, with buddies over there in the hills and stuff. But I remember as a kid, St. George has always had a good youth golf program. So as a kid, we could play golf for $1.
Really? Okay.
And so what I would do in the summer is I'd sleep at my grandparents' house, and they lived right across the street from the 9th tee box at Red Hills. Okay. And so I'd wake up in the morning, walk across the street, play number 9 up to the clubhouse, pay $1, and go play 9 again.
So you were stealing 10 cents a golf.
Yeah. I was, just, no one ever said anything. No one ever cared back then. And then later on that day up at the golf course, Brent Orchard, who was the pro up there, would pay me $1 to go down around the driving range and chip all the balls that people had hit sideways back into the driving range so he could pick them up with the cart.
Oh, okay.
And so I'd make $1.
So you were a professional golfer at how old?
That would then, this was when I was 8,
Okay.
8, 9 years old. Then I would be able to go play golf again.
Sweet.
For $1. So
yeah, that's not a bad setup.
I played 18, 27 holes a day.
No way.
With our buddies just in the middle of the summer because it was $1.
Yeah.
We'd go play golf at Red Hills and we'd get around to number 6 and we'd walk up to the clubhouse and we'd get a drink, we'd get a suicide.
Yeah.
Which was just, for 20, 30, 50 cents. I don't know how much it was back then, but Brent would just get us a cup and just go down every single soda fountain drink that he had.
Yeah, that does not sound delicious.
I just remember that as a kid, but yeah, it was good times. But yeah, growing up, that was what I remember as a kid is both my parents working hard.
Yeah.
I had 5. There was 5 kids, including me. I've got an older sister. Then there's me. Then I've got a little brother, and then 2 younger sisters. And so, yeah, my parents just worked their butts off.
Do you think, so you started working, a bunch of jobs you talked about it yet young, started at Pizza Factory at 14 and didn't focus as much at school. Do you think that's from the example of your parents just being into their careers? Like, did you always have a drive to work, or where does that come from?
I always was taught to work hard. My dad, we had money. We were fine. But my parents my mom was a great example of just she never relaxed.
Yeah.
She would get up, go to work all day, come home, cook dinner, clean the house, help kids with homework, and do it all again the next day.
Yeah.
My dad was the same way. I mean, he would go to work all day, and when he was working for 5th District Court, he worked a lot of late hours, preparing transcripts and things like that. And so, I even remember at night, when I was getting ready for bed, my dad would be sitting in bed with a transcript, proofing it.
Yeah.
Because he had to make sure that the punctuation was correct and grammatically it made sense based on his shorthand, and it was correct.
Yeah.
I just remember him with piles of hundreds of pages of transcripts that he would be reading through and do that late into the night. And so, that example of hard work was always there for me. My dad always mowed the lawns, washed the cars, took care of all the outs. He never paid anybody to do that stuff, even though I'm sure he could have. But that, I saw that, and I also liked, look, I had 5 siblings, there was 5 of us. And so we didn't really get an allowance or anything like that. So I always liked to have money on me.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I worked, I could do that. And so even going back, I can't remember how old I was, but I had a paper route.
Yeah, me too.
So I would do the paper route, service those customers, and go collect the money each month for the Daily Spectrum.
Do you remember how sweet that was, getting your first checks from a paper out?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I always tried to do a really good job because I would get tips.
Okay.
I'd get a little extra kick each month when I collected the money.
Yeah.
Whether it was in the form of cash or like candy bars or whatever.
Okay. Or suicides.
The people that I knew, that's what they, I just took care. I made sure the papers ended up where they needed to go and not in the bushes, not on the roof, whatever,
So did the work ethic stuff ever translate to school to where you started to get more serious about your studies? Or did you feel like even all the way through you didn't
finally
take it that
in
seriously?
College and law school, I took it more serious.
Yeah.
I didn't do bad. It was fine.
You weren't like a 4.0 guy in high school?
No, I was working, I was playing golf, I was doing all these things that, were important to me. And yeah, I did okay. I did obviously well enough to go to college and law school, but I could have taken it more serious, but I don't regret any of that decision. I had a paper route, then I mowed lawns in the summer. And finally, when I turned 14, I remember I was mowing this lady's lawn for her. It was 115 degrees outside.
Okay.
And I remember I used to carry a CD Walkman with me.
Yeah.
That I would like somehow strap to like my belt or something so I could listen to music while I'm mowing lawns, hoping I didn't tap it because it didn't have like shockproof on it. So it'd skip. But I remember doing that, and I think I was getting paid $5.
Okay.
And I probably did too good of a job. I had too much pride in it, so it took me a couple hours.
Yeah.
I got paid $5. Maybe not even $5. Might even less than that. And I was just like, are you kidding me? There's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
And so at 14, that's when I was like, I'm going to go walk down to Pizza Factory. The house that I was mowing the lawn, I remember the house that I was mowing the lawn at was like a block from Pizza Factory.
Okay.
And I was like, screw this. And I walked down to Pizza Factory and asked for an application.
Yeah.
At 14 to wash dishes.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting that job, which that played a big role in, I think, where I've ended up today, having that job at 14.
How so?
Just it taught me not only how to work hard, how to sacrifice, but it also taught me, I learned a lot about customer service from that experience. I remember I still, to this day, am friends with the owner, Bill Randall.
Yeah.
And he was the perfect example of someone who cared about his business and cared about his customers. It was interesting. He started the restaurant. He didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
He didn't have to. He had people that worked there. He had managers, he had staff, all that. But if you went there for lunch, you knew Bill would be there.
I still see him a lot of times when I go.
He's still there every day.
Yeah.
And he would show up at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
He'd cut vegetables and prep with the rest of us.
Yeah.
And he'd stay all day.
You know what's funny about that? So we're partners now, and there's three of us, and you and I and Nate Langston, and sometimes in a partnership scenario, it can be good to have some differences. And when you tell that story, even about mowing a lawn for $5 and spending hours to do it, I remember being a kid mowing lawns and being like, how fast can I mow this lawn to get out of here? Because then if I can do it in 20 minutes, I'm making $15 an hour if they're paying me $5, right? And I still am like about speed and efficiency today. And even today, 30 years later, 35 years later, even from when that was, you're still like very attentive to detail and like quality control and like putting your stamp, your name on it.
You got to find a balance. Obviously you've got to be efficient, but not in a way that is detrimental to the brand or to the client or to, the processes that you have.
Yeah.
Some of that goes back to just the way my grandpa and my dad and the things I saw them do.
Yeah.
I remember my dad would mow the lawn, or when I mowed the lawn for him, he always required that I swept up afterwards.
Okay.
I hated that.
Yeah.
Like not just swept it like back into the grass, like swept it up and put it in a dustpan and then dumped it in the trash.
Oh geez. Yeah. I didn't do that.
And I had to sweep the gutters and everything around the house. Just that attention to detail was something that I think I learned, very early on. My grandpa, my dad's dad, who lived next door to us, was very much that way. Attention to detail with everything he did.
Okay.
Whether it was washing the cars, mowing the lawn, doing yard work, his business, he was very particular about every little thing, even down to how he looked while he was doing it.
Okay.
I remember my grandpa next door mowing the lawn on a Saturday morning wearing like a white polo golf shirt tucked into his jeans with white Tommy Hilfiger shoes on.
Yeah.
While he's mowing the lawn.
That's funny. That's very you. Yeah. Today.
But that's just the personality that they had. And I think I got a lot of that through my blood. So,
yeah. So tell me about, college, like going to school, career decisions. When did you, I guess, first know that you wanted to pursue like a career as being a lawyer at all?
I've always been around lawyers. Like I said, my mom worked for lawyers before I was born, and for her whole career worked with lawyers. My dad always worked with lawyers, whether it was at court. He worked for the 5th District Court for a number of years, and then kind of the writing was on the wall that the court was going away from somebody typing and going digital to where they would just record it and then only transcribe it if it was necessary.
Okay.
And so he ended up leaving that job and then just became a private court reporter that did depositions for, and he was in demand enough that he did depositions only for the attorneys that he liked.
Yeah.
And so I got to know attorneys that way and kind of was around the legal process a little bit that way. And, my dad being around all different kinds of lawyers everywhere, from, he would do depositions in all types of cases and with all kinds of lawyers. Even a lot of injury cases and insurance type claim cases.
Okay.
And I remember he always told me, man, I did a deposition today and one of the lawyers was really successful, but I'll tell you what, if that guy can be successful, you're going to be really successful because that guy was an idiot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just the way that he presented and my dad would kind of critique these guys. So he knew who the really good lawyers were. And it was easy to see that didn't always reflect in terms of success.
Sure.
Business-wise. And so, he always kind of talked about lawyers and I think he always kind of wanted me to go become a lawyer because I think he wished he would have.
Okay.
After, being around lawyers so long in his career and going through and becoming certified shorthand and all these things, he was like, why didn't I just go to law school?
Yeah.
I probably would have had a better life if I did, and all these things. And so he always kind of wanted me to go to law school. I think that wasn't always the plan. I had family that was very successful financial advisors and things like that in Las Vegas. And so I was kind of looking at I always knew some type of business professional type situation was right for me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I didn't decide to go to law school probably until halfway through my bachelor's degree.
Okay. So tell me about that. So are you still working at Pizza Factory, getting your bachelor's, or where are you at for school?
So I worked at Pizza Factory till I went on a mission to Florida at, I guess I was 19. So I graduated high school, I was working at Pizza Factory the entire time. Okay. And I had moved up in different roles to where I was making really good money at the time, but I also played golf all through high school competitively. I quit baseball in like 9th grade, focused on golf solely, and went through that. Then I went on a mission. And then when I came back from my mission, I was working at Pizza Factory, and I took a job at Christensen's department store.
Okay.
In the men's and shoes department there. And did those jobs while I went to, at the time, Dixie State, that's now Utah Tech, and got my associate's degree there. At the time, I think that's all they had was associate's degrees. I can't remember. And then transferred to SUU, Southern Utah University, where I got my bachelor's degree.
Gotcha.
And I think it was kind of at that point. So I was working at Christensen's as a manager, managing the men's department and working in shoes, and also managing Pizza Factory at night.
Okay. Kind
of doing both jobs. And then I also started a business it was called Soft Water Salt Service, where we would service water softeners.
Okay.
So another service type industry business where we would deliver salt for people, put it in their water softeners, and make sure they're running correctly.
And I mean, I need that today.
Yeah, I know, right? And so I did that I started that business and tried to grow that situation, that clientele up. And then I decided to go to law school.
Okay.
And I decided kind of last minute that I wanted to try and go. And so I had to kind of jump into the LSAT abruptly. I never took like an LSAT prep course or anything like that.
Oh, really?
No, I mean,
kind of flying by the seat of your pants
did it.
With that a little bit.
And I did okay on it. But then I also, when I decided to go to law school, when I sent in my applications, it was way late in the application period.
Okay.
And so all these schools in law school, they all, enrollment is all like a rolling enrollment.
Yeah.
So the later you apply in the process, the more seats are already filled, right? Because they're just reviewing applications as they come in and assigning a seat or not. And so when I applied to like 20 law schools, I was getting waitlisted or denied at all of them because I was so late in the process.
What was that like? I mean, what does that feel like to feel like you're not getting into all these places?
I wasn't that worried about it.
Okay.
Just because it was a last minute thing that I decided to do then. And I thought, worst case scenario, I could retake the LSAT, take some time and get in the following year. But for me, I never wanted a big law firm job. I kind of knew that I wanted to do, I thought early on I wanted to do plaintiffs type trial work.
Okay.
Just from seeing my dad in the courtroom and seeing that kind of stuff. Because I used to go visit him when he was in court, because I thought it was cool because my dad in court, he would sit in the very front of the courtroom, right in front of the judge.
Okay.
And he was a court reporter for everything that came through the courtroom, whether it was a divorce, a civil trial, criminal trials. And so, especially when it came to criminal trials, I mean, there was some big, heavy stuff that would happen.
Yeah.
And the judge, he sat behind his desk that was bulletproof. And my dad sat right in front of him.
Okay.
So my dad carried a gun in court.
Okay.
He had I think it was a .38 revolver that he just kept down kind of on his ankle.
Jeez.
because if something happened, he wasn't going down. He was going to go down with a fight.
Okay.
So I don't know that. I mean, I just thought it was kind of cool, kind of what he did. So I did go watch him a little bit in court and see how that all went down. And so I wanted to go to law school, and I started getting all these applications back as being denied, or I got waitlisted at some schools. And again, I didn't really care where I went. I just wanted to go wherever I could get a good education and prepare to take a bar exam. I mean, obviously, it needed to be an accredited school with a good. To me, I looked at accreditation, cost, location, and bar rate passage.
Okay.
Bar passage rates.
Yeah.
I didn't care about placement at big law firms and some of these things that other people worry about. And so I got waitlisted at several schools and denied by 20 schools. And I keep telling myself that was only because it was open rolling enrollment, and I would have got in, but I probably wouldn't have anyways. But so I ended up getting waitlisted at a school in Ohio called Ohio Northern University that had a really good history. Had been around for 100 years. Nobody really knew about it because it was a small private Methodist school.
So you ended up going to Ohio Northern University for law school.
I chose that because they had a really high bar passage rate.
Okay.
And so I didn't get in. I got waitlisted. And so what I did was, at the time when I got waitlisted, I had just finished working at the state legislature as an intern for Steve Urquhart, who was at the time very high up in politics in Utah, but he was also the main attorney for the Work Comp Fund. And he was a family friend. And so when I got waitlisted, I called him and I said, "Look, man, I need your help.
Yeah.
Will you write me a letter of recommendation and see if you can get this school to get me in?"
Okay.
So he said, "Yeah, that's no problem," because I'd worked with him. He knew me. And so he wrote a letter to the dean, and within a week, I got a call from the dean. And he said, "Look, if you want a spot," and this was like July,
okay,
and school started in August.
Yeah.
And the dean says, "Look, if you want a spot, I got one for you."
Awesome.
And so the next week I flew out to Ohio and checked it out and committed, and
awesome.
The rest is history.
Super similar thing happened to me. Sometimes those connections, people that you know, ends up being the kind of the most important thing.
That was a life changer.
Local guy going to, Dixie State and then SUU, getting your bachelor's, working at local businesses, and now you're in Ohio going to law school. Did you know that you wanted to come back to St. George? Like, is this where you wanted to be, or were you open to looking at jobs like all over the country? What was that decision like?
I mean,
as
at the
far as
time,
finishing school?
I think growing up in St. George, I was always worried that I wouldn't be able to come back to St. George and make the kind of living that I wanted to.
Okay.
There just wasn't the industry and services and people to support being very successful at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you could come back here and have a middle class life, and that was fine. But there's very few very successful people, and so I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to come back to St. George. I love St. George. I hated Ohio. I mean,
Okay.
It was cold in the winters. It was not pretty. It was flat. There was soybean and cornfields everywhere. It was just, there was some pretty areas, but I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could.
Okay.
So at the time I was single, and so I did law school as fast as I could in just over 2 years. Got all my classes done and was able to graduate early. And just so happened that was 2008.
Yeah.
When the economy just took a dump.
Yeah, tough time for lawyers.
So, it was, the market as far as attorneys was tightening.
Okay.
I was single, and I decided I don't want to come back to St. George because the market's tight, and I was 20, probably 28, 29 at the time.
Okay.
I was a little older. I wanted to date and meet people, and St. George just wasn't the vibe for that. And so I decided to go to Las Vegas, where I had family. Big city, more opportunity. So I moved to Las Vegas, moved in with some family, and started studying for the bar exam in Nevada.
Okay.
And ultimately, I studied for the bar exam, passed the bar. And while I was waiting for my bar results to come back, I started interviewing with different firms. I had tried to get a job in personal injury while I was still, my last year of law school, my last semester, I emailed and called every personal injury firm in Nevada.
Okay. Which is like, Vegas is like the mecca of personal injury law firms. Yeah.
And I had a couple that were kind of interested in me, but then the economy got so bad, nobody would commit.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I passed the bar, and I just happened to respond. I found another job offer that was doing real estate transactional work, loan modifications, and some just general counsel type stuff for a casino group.
Okay.
At a new law firm that was just getting started. And so I interviewed for that and ultimately got that job. And what's crazy is the reason I got that job, one of the big reasons, was because I was an Eagle Scout.
Really?
Of all things, which who the heck would ever think that?
Yeah.
I hated Scouts.
Yeah, me too.
Freaking hated it.
Yeah.
I hated camping. I just didn't like it. But
back then everybody did it.
Everybody
you
did
had
it. So
to do it. Yeah.
I ended up getting my Eagle Scout award or whatever you call that. And I interviewed for this job, and the guy that was opening the law firm, his name was Jacob Hafter. And he was a Jewish guy, really great guy, good attorney. And he had just started a Boy Scout troop at his synagogue.
Oh, no way. Okay.
And so he was just all about Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And he loved the fact that I was an Eagle Scout.
Jeez, what are the odds of that? Yeah,
and so
crazy.
He ended up offering me a job. I took that job and got into it. Didn't really love it. I was doing real estate transactional work, some kind of litigation, general stuff, contract work. We had a big client that was owned a bunch of old downtown casino properties that we would help with some legal work, and I just didn't like it.
So how soon did you start looking to get out of that?
I got to the point, I was making okay money. I was still single. I got to the point where I hated it so much that the only joy I had was when I woke up, when I got out of law school, I bought my first nice car when I got my job.
Yeah.
So I love cars. I've always been around nice cars. I always wanted nice cars. And so when I got out of law school and got my first job with this law firm, I went and bought a brand, it wasn't brand new. It was actually like used certified BMW.
Okay.
And I loved that car. And that was the only joy I had.
Was driving to work.
Waking up in the morning, being able to drive my car to work, getting through the day, and driving home.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah.
And I finally got to the point where I was like, look, if this is what my life's going to be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'd rather go wait tables. I'd rather do anything.
Yeah.
And so I just started getting that feeling, and out of the blue, a family connection in St. George that had a personal injury law firm reached out to me and said, hey, I heard you might be interested in coming back to St. George. I have a job opportunity. Come talk to me.
Sweet.
And so that's when I decided to come back to St. George.
Okay. So tell me about that. So you're able to come back to St. George and start working as a personal injury attorney. How did you like that transition?
So the transition was good. I liked, for me, being able to help real people while advocating for somebody and caring about somebody and telling their story and helping them through a tough time. That's what I was passionate about.
Okay. And
so I took this job, started to learn more about personal injury. I always thought if I'm going to be a lawyer, I want to be a trial lawyer anyways. It just so happened that in Vegas, that wasn't an option because the job market was so bad.
Okay.
And so this gave me the opportunity to get into that flow of things and that kind of legal work, which got me excited.
So how long were you working at this previous firm as an associate attorney there before deciding to go out on your own and start what was then McMullin Legal Group?
So I was there for, I think, about 3 years. So to back up, so I came back to St. George. I was single. I took this job at a personal injury firm. It was the worst paying job probably out there.
Okay.
I made no money.
Okay.
Back then,
like more money than waiting tables, or the same?
No, probably less.
Less. Okay.
I mean, back then there was a lot of small town mindset still here, where the mindset was, hey, yeah, you're not getting paid a lot, but what the heck, isn't this a great place to live? That's your pay.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense because I can't pay my bills. I mean, I had been very smart about law school in that before I went to law school, I'd save money. I sold my soft water salt business for a little bit of money. And so now I had some money that I didn't have to take out a ton of student loans.
Okay, sweet. And
I lived very cheap in law school. I was by myself, and I was in Ohio where it wasn't very expensive. And so, I was living on $600-700 a month.
Wow. Okay.
In law school. And so I didn't come out with a lot of debt, but I had some. And so I took this job, and it was barely enough after taxes to pay my bills, like my just general living expense. And I was living at home.
Did you sell the BMW?
I still had it at the time.
Okay.
So I took this job, crappy pay, incentives weren't very good, but the pitch was that long-term, this was a business that would turn into a partnership and all these things.
Yeah.
And after a few years of doing personal injury and I guess seeing some of the disagreements that I had with how the business was being run and that the future wasn't as I guess as it was pitched to me, I finally got to the point. So again, backing up, I had gotten married. I came back to St. George, and while I was working, I ended up meeting my wife through her father, my now father-in-law, who owned part of pasta factory. So I knew him. I didn't know he had a daughter. He introduced me to his daughter. Boom, we got married. And at the time when we got married, my wife had a kid from a previous marriage. She was like 18 months old. So we had Kai, and immediately after we got married, wanted to have a family. So we got pregnant again and ended up having twins.
Okay.
And so now, within a year and a half, I've gone from being single, lawyer in Vegas, making decent money, hating my life. Year and a half later, now I've got 3 kids.
Yeah.
A wife, a job I kind of like, but doesn't pay anything.
Okay.
And so, let's see, my twins were born in November of 2011, November 30th, 2011. And it was right around that time they were born, I finally looked around and said, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this. And so I made the decision at that point, look, I got to go figure something out. And so with 3 young kids, a brand new wife, no money, I said, there's got to be something better. I can do this better. And I quit my job.
So tell me about why the decision, though, to go hang a shingle and start your own small firm instead of looking for finding another opportunity, another job somewhere else.
I just always, I think it comes down to that I wanted to be responsible for my destiny. I just got sick of relying on other people.
Okay.
I mean, I can't remember. We're going on, 13 years now, and a lot's happened since then. I wish I could go back and remember exactly what my mindset was.
Yeah.
Because it was, it took guts. I don't know how I did it.
Do you remember how many years it took you to earn more out on your own than to earn at the job that you left?
It didn't take very long. So I'd been working for a few years. I had a small caseload at the other firm. But when I left, I had respect for the guy I worked for.
Yeah.
And so when I decided to leave, that was a personal decision for me. It wasn't because I didn't like him. And so when I left, I didn't really want to hurt him.
Sure.
Because it wasn't about him. It was about me. And so I didn't make an effort to really take cases with me or do any of that. There was a few, I think there was like 15 cases or something of my caseload that decided to continue with me at my new firm, and take a chance on me, basically, to continue to represent them.
Yeah.
But I just decided to do it. And so I just think it made sense at the time. I wish I could go back and remember why I wasn't looking for other jobs, but I wanted to, I saw the writing on the wall that I could be successful.
Yeah.
And I didn't want somebody else deciding that for me.
Okay.
It was just at that time now a matter of, can I pool the resources necessary to do something like this? I mean, I remember when I quit my job, and I was emotional when I quit because it wasn't that I didn't like the guy that I was working for.
Sure. Plus,
and I remember,
scary.
Yeah.
You got 3 kids.
I mean, at the time it was super scary. I didn't have a ton to lose because I didn't have anything. I wasn't making enough to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I remember I had a $500 alarm on my credit card because I knew that each month, if I had to put more than $500 on my credit card, I couldn't pay it.
Okay.
And, I didn't have a lot to lose because I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
I was barely getting by. And so, but that being said, I also didn't have the resources that it takes to start a successful personal injury law firm.
Yeah.
I remember when I quit, the guy I was working for said, so what, you're going to go out on your own, or like you're just going to do everything? Divorces, criminal stuff, estate planning, all that. And I looked at him and I said, no, I'm going to do personal injury.
Yeah.
And he basically said, well, good luck with that. Because he didn't think that I could do it.
Yeah.
And that it was a motivator to me, like, well, just watch.
Yeah.
Because I knew I could do it better. The question became, could I get the resources to do it? And could I really do it better? Could I make the phone ring? And was there, we're in a small town, there's only so many potential clients. Could I grab a piece of that pie and make the phone ring?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the focus of, can I build it?
So 13 years later, as we're sitting here, have you had any, so today, I think our firm has what I believe is the leading market share in our region, personal injury wise. Have you had conversations at all with that previous employer about that? Like, is there any bridges that need to be mended there? Like, has there been any communication?
Yeah, I see him and we're fine. I don't have any ill will towards him or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think he's a little shocked.
Sure.
That I left him and was able to be successful, and even multiple times more successful than the firm he'd built.
Yeah. So I remember, so was it January 2012-ish that you opened up shop, McMullin Legal Group? Is that
so
what you said?
I'd made the decision over the holidays that I was going to probably try and do this.
Okay.
And so that would have been 2011 though.
Okay.
And in 2012, January, February, that's when I started to try and figure out the preparations and what I needed to do.
Okay.
So I think in like February-ish, I was begging banks for money, 6-figure loans. I was trying to nail down an office space, trying to get everything kind of behind the scenes while I was still working.
Yeah.
But I would do it. Look, again, I didn't have any problems with where I worked. I just didn't see a future there. So I was doing this at night. I was doing this on the weekends. I was doing this during my lunch hour where I was trying to pool the resources and get it all figured out and have a game plan.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that helped me with that was because I didn't have the resources, I had to convince people to believe in me in order to give me money.
Yeah.
And to do that, I had to sell myself and my concept and my idea of my firm.
Okay.
And so I had to prepare a business plan. I had to talk about what was going to set me apart in the market and highlight all these different things to where people believed that I was a good bet.
Okay.
And so I ended up getting all those resources pulled together. I got enough money that I could make a go of it. And I think the end of February is probably when I left.
Okay. So I remember, so I came and worked for you as an intern before my last year of law school, summer of 2013.
So a year later.
A little over a year later. Yeah. So pretty early on. So tell me about that first year getting an office space. I mean, what were you using this business loan? Where did that money go? Was that just to keep the lights on and to be able to take some money home to pay your bills? Or did you have big expenses starting out? What was that like?
I had to be very smart. I sold my BMW. I drove not a very reliable car. I cut my expenses way down. I risked it all basically. And, the money that I ended up getting to start the firm, I had to get an office. I tried to make the office feel as successful and nice as I could on a budget. It was really tricky because I wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
But I had to do it recognizing that I only had a certain amount of resources. And I had like 15 cases that came with me. None of them were very big.
Okay.
And so I had to be very careful. But one of the things that I did that I think was helpful was I told myself that, look, if I'm going to do this, I can't do it to the detriment of my wife and kids. And so what I immediately did was, and there's two different lines of thinking. So what I did was the money that I had as an investment in my firm, I used some of that as payroll.
Yeah.
And I put myself on the payroll so that I knew that I could at least pay my bills for a while until I ran out of money.
Sure.
But I was okay. And that gave me for me, that was helpful because it freed me up to really go after it. Obviously, there's another line of thinking that says, look, you got to be really hungry and not pay yourself and whatever.
Yeah.
But I just said, look, if I'm going to do this, I can't hurt my family by doing it. So I got to make sure I have some money.
So you used it to have some stability in your life and at home. And then meanwhile,
it wasn't a lot. It was like I basically paid my salary to me enough to pay my minimal bills, and everything else went into the business.
So I remember we were in a small little, I don't know how many square feet, little location over at Troon Park.
It was like 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
It's 3 offices and a conference room and a little bathroom. Over
behind Fabulous Freddy's by the Callahan Clinic there. Mm-hmm. Tell me about those early years over there. What was that like, having not a ton of cases and trying to essentially be starting something from nothing and get it off the ground?
Well, I remember looking back on that. I remember the first couple months I had no revenue. That's just the inherent difficulty of a personal injury firm. Case you work on a contingency fee, you're not making money until you settle a case.
Yeah.
And cases take on average, 8 months to a year. So it was going to be a while. But I had a few cases that were kind of in that phase that I took from the other law firm, but I owed a big chunk of that back to the other law firm because when they came with me, I basically said, look, these cases are coming with me. They're clients that they know me and they want me. You just tell me what percentage you want that's fair, and I'll just pay you that.
Okay.
And it was a lot, most of it. So first couple months, no revenue, and then I slowly started to get some checks coming in on these settlements, enough that I didn't break even for a few months.
Okay.
For a month, per month. But it was, I was constantly dumping money in. I was out. I didn't have a budget to do big time marketing. I had to be very smart with my marketing dollars. And so I was trying to be very creative in terms of how to make the phone ring. And a lot of that had to do with recognizing that one of the things that was missing in the market was the personal relationship type stuff.
Okay.
A lot of the guys that were here doing personal injury at the time were not good at that. They faked it, but they weren't sincere in it, I didn't think. And so
Meaning like personal relationships with who?
with doctors and chiropractors and other lawyers and things like that to get referrals.
Okay.
And so I started to make it was very important to me to build relationships, but build real relationships that meant something and not were superficial and all just about you referring cases to me and maybe I'll try and send you some cases.
Who were one or two of like the initial relationships that were pivotal in actually getting some referrals during that first year, like before the website is up and churning? And
I'd have to go back and look, but some of the early relationships were chiropractors like Rob McKnight.
Yeah.
I got to know Rob really well, really looked up to him as as a physician, chiropractic physician, and liked him, liked the way that he treated patients and the honesty that he did his job and his records and all that. And so I kind of built a relationship with him. And so he referred some stuff to me early on. There was lawyers like, at the time, Jay Winward and Lamar Winward. Jay's now a judge, but those guys trusted me. And then at the time, Gary Kuhlman and Nick Turner. Nick was a young lawyer, a young associate and future partner with Gary. Gary was an older lawyer in town who knew everybody. In fact, I had taken a business law class from him at Dixie. So I knew him and he trusted me. And so he sent me, and they didn't do personal injury, so they would send me some cases. In fact, probably the very first 6-figure case that I resolved came from Gary.
Okay.
And it was a family member of his. And so I owe a lot to those guys like Nick Turner, Jay Winward, Lamar. Trying to think who there's other people that I'm forgetting, but people that I cared about and still care about, but also took, they trusted me.
Yeah.
And were willing to help get me going.
So I remember working there over the summer. So Casey worked with you, was your paralegal and like office assistant that had worked with you at the previous firm as well. And so it was the two of you in this small location over there in Troon Park. And Casey needed to go on maternity leave. She's going to have a baby. And that opened the door for me to come and take a job with you that summer, and came and kind of filled in as a paralegal. I knew I wanted to do personal injury law and be back in St. George, and built a relationship with you. And I go back to school. Tell me about that decision to where now over the course of my third year of law school, you then make me an employment offer to come on. I think it's $60,000 a year salary. How do you
that was probably one of the scariest things I ever did.
Okay. Tell me about that.
I mean, first I want to go back. I think it would not be right to mention the law firm starting out and where it is today without talking a little about Casey.
Yeah.
So Casey was a big part of that. And it's good to get kind of reminisce about these things because it reminds me of the importance that she played.
Yeah.
When I left the other law firm, Casey at the time was working at the other law firm with me as a paralegal.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but she was willing to make the jump.
Yeah.
She risked a lot.
She took a risk too. To
come work with me.
Yeah.
And over the years with her and everything we've had our ups and downs. I've made mistakes, but the bottom line is she's always been very loyal to me, to the firm. And she's a big reason why early on the firm was able to be successful.
Yeah.
Because of who she is, her hard work, her knowledge and how she cared about me and the success of the business. So I owe a lot to her for that. But I remember, it was hard because her and I were good friends. We start the law firm. And then shortly after that, she tells me she's pregnant. She'd gotten married and was going to have a kid.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's hard to be excited for people because now I'm realizing, well, crap, I got an employee that I need to support, you know, and this great life event that she's having, but it's going to leave me in a tough position, you know, for several months while she has the baby and has some maternity leave.
Yeah. I mean, she's your only crutch.
Yeah. I mean, that's all I had. I think at that point I may have had another reception person. We may have been up to 3 within several months. But then, and I can't remember how it happened, but then Cameron Morby reached out to me and said, hey, I got this brother-in-law, goes to ASU, he's interested in PI, got time for lunch, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so that's when you and I met. I think we went to lunch at like Bear Paw or something.
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere over there in Maine.
I think it was Bear Paw. And we met, and it worked out to where you could come for the summer. And I don't remember how many cases we had. I mean, it was, probably 50 to 60, maybe.
I think so, yeah.
That we were working, and I was kind of, you know, again, it was a small business. I had to do everything from clean the toilet, vacuum on the weekends, to run cases and go to court. You know what I mean? And had you doing the same. I mean, it was just a small business at the time where we had to do everything. But I remember having you for those months, and then I knew you had a desire to come back, but I was like, I think I told you straight up, like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think I can pull that off.
Yeah. I remember I went and introduced myself to like every other personal injury law firm in town during that summer before I went back to school.
Yeah. Because I'm sure I told you that go do that. Cause I don't know that I've got the work.
Yeah.
And, you know, you must be living right or something at the time, because over the next several months while you were going back to school for your last year, things started to pick up to where I was like, I think I want to do that.
Yeah.
And obviously you and I got along great. I saw the things in you that I didn't have that you could make me better at, and vice versa. So I think it was a good fit. And yeah, finally I was like, I can't even remember when I made the decision, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try and make it work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's when I think I called you and made you an offer to come work for me at the time. And with the idea that let's try and build this and make it big.
Yeah. I remember working on the website, like writing articles, trying to build up the website to where it could land clients. Like while I was in school, you were paying me to write articles. Yeah. I mean,
well, it just so happened that the office next door at the time was the early phases of St. George News.
Yeah.
And a company called Online Web Marketing, which is OLWM, which is kind of the same guys. And so like, yeah, I'd go talk to them about, they built me the website and did all these things for me. And so, yeah, starting to build that. And
it ended up to be, yeah.
I mean, that was, St. George News was nothing back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nothing, but yeah, that's kind of the early beginnings of where we're at now with 21 employees and multiple 7 figures in revenue. And, you know, I haven't looked back at like what the numbers of the success looked like at the firm at the time, you know, early on the first couple of years, but I mean, it took me, over a year before I was like, okay, I can make decent money.
Yeah.
And then I could pay back my loans and do all the things that I needed to do and reinvest in the law firm. I still, you know, and I think you can attest to this as a partner, like to this day, I'm still pretty conservative in terms of you know, making sure we have plenty of money for the firm and to take care of people and to reinvest and not get carried away with, you know, paying ourselves and things like that.
So we end up, from this little space over at Troon Park, we end up moving 2016 up to the top of the hill downtown at the top of 200 East. Then you bought space next door and built out into that to where now we've got, I don't know, is it 4,000 square feet ish? And we've got
4,400 square feet.
So tell me about that kind of some of the keys to the transition that with how you see it sitting here now over the last 12 years, and you've talked about some of these things already, but what things do you see as the biggest wins or victories that you had that have led us to where we're at now?
I mean, I think what's made us who we are has been relationships, has been caring about clients and customer service. And look, we're not perfect. I'm always one that thinks we can be better. And the busier we get, and the faster we grow, the harder it is to be the best. But I think having a good reputation, being honest, making sure that we always do the right thing has always been a priority for us, and that's set us apart. I think that's the foundation of our success. And then on top of that, some of the decisions we've made with both location of the law firm and office stuff, in addition to the people that we brought on that have helped us grow. I mean, I was just oddly enough, I was looking at old pictures last night on my phone, and I looked back and saw when we bought the office.
Yeah.
And the gut job, we gutted it and built it out the way we wanted it.
Yeah, it was a hair salon.
Yeah, yeah. And it was, I mean, you played a big part in that. I looked at that space and I loved the views, but I was like, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
And I remember you looked at it, you're like, dude, this is perfect.
Yeah.
And it has turned out to be great. And I remember when we built out that office, I built it out, and we had 1, 2, 3, 5. We had 5 offices, a conference room, a break room, and a little copy room. And when we first moved in there, I think we had 2 empty offices.
Yeah.
And I was like, this space is going to last forever.
Yep.
And then a couple years later, we're maxed out. And we end up buying the space next door, gutting that, combining the 2, and doubling our square footage into what we have today. In
2023, we're maxed out again.
Yeah, we're maxed out again and looking for other office space.
Got problems. Need some space for more people.
It's crazy the way that things have worked out, but a lot of that goes to, I think, you and the people that we brought on, the decisions that we've made, and like I said, all along trying to maintain this, do things the right way by being honest and truthful. And it's allowed us to gain a good reputation in the community and with the industry that we work in, with other lawyers and insurance agents, adjusters and things like that. But yeah, it's something that has become, I take a lot of pride in who we are as an office and being able to provide good jobs to 20 plus people in the community. So
now, I mean, we've helped thousands of local people with personal injury cases at this point over the last decade. Can you give us an example of one of those, of a client that sticks out to you that you felt like you did a good job on and had a good relationship with?
I mean, there's lots of them over the years. I mean, nowadays I don't have a ton of personal clients that I run because I'm busy with some of the administration stuff of the law firm. But I remember I know it's hard to nail down just one client that has made that made a difference with us, and I made a difference with them, because there's lots. Whether all the way from young kids that we've been able to help with major injuries and issues, all the way up to older people and it's just always, it's a stressful situation because people aren't calling us. They're calling us because they're having a bad day, or they're referred to us because they're having a bad day. And it's our job to help navigate that situation. Every client has different needs, different things that are important to them. Whether it's property damage or work or injuries or household things they can't do anymore. Everybody has a different mindset in terms of what's important to them, but just the satisfaction that comes from being able to make those situations right to the extent that the law can.
Yeah.
But I pride myself in the way that the firm has handled those, different clients that you've worked with and the firm's worked with, where obviously the firm has to make money to survive, but we've always tried to maximize, the results for the client and what that means to them.
Do you remember the firm's first 7-figure settlement or verdict?
Yeah. I remember the firm's first 6-figure, resolution, the firm's first 7-figure.
What felt bigger at the time? What was a bigger deal to you? The first 6-figure or the first 7-figure?
Both were great.
Yeah.
Because, again, both came at times that the law firm was still growing and building. So they both played different roles in the success of the firm.
Do you remember what happened with the 7-figure one? What the accident was like? Or the case was like?
The first 7-figure case that I had to do with a family that was traveling through the Midwest and got in a really bad crash with a couple of teenage sons and a dad that were really injured. And they're great people in the community and have played an important role in St. George with their businesses and things. And so, they trusted me to help them with that case. And that was, I think, the first 7-figure case that I worked on.
Yeah, I remember that. Some pretty serious injuries.
Big injuries.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills.
But just, and again, what we do is hard because the money doesn't make it better. It doesn't fix injuries, right? It doesn't fix scars. It doesn't make that go away, but it's the only way the law can compensate somebody for those things. But, even though these, like, for example, these teenage boys, due to their injuries, they may have some residual effects throughout their life where they have to deal with or are reminded of those things. And, it's funny because my phone just rang. And the person that's calling me is the person that referred that case.
No way.
But, money doesn't make it better for these things, but putting people in a position where they can better them. I mean, these kids that we got the money for, their lives have changed because of that money, and they were able to be smart and reinvest it. And I know they bought some, real estate stuff and things like that. And so, that I take a lot of satisfaction in that. I may not be able to, if you fracture your femur and you got a rod in your femur, we're not going to take, the law doesn't remove the rod and heal the bone, but it gives money to people as compensation for that and getting people that fair compensation so that they can be better and fix their situations. And I think that's a great aspect of what we do.
Tell me more about, let's get to know your family a little bit more. Tell me about your wife and kids.
So my wife and I have been married for just over 13 years. Again, I met my wife through my father-in-law, which not everybody can say that. I mean, at the time he trusted me and asked me to take his daughter out, and it just turned into this great situation. I love my in-laws. And they played a role in me meeting my wife. So we've been married for 13 years. She's from here basically. Again, they owned a restaurant, pasta factory, pizza factory. That has played a huge role in my life. The restaurant business, that particular restaurant, especially, not only teaching me and allowing me to work at a young age and teaching me work ethic, but also now my entire family is a result of that, which is pretty crazy.
How many kids do you have?
So I got 5 kids. Again, Malachi's 15. Gray and Elsa are the twins that are 11. And then Hugh is 8 and Liam's 6. Big family. I grew up in a big family, so, it's fitting, I guess. I never thought I'd have 5 kids, but never thought I'd have a 20-person law firm.
What do you and Brittany and these 5 kids do for fun? What's a day in life like at your household, the McMullin home?
Let's just say that it's easier for me to get up in the morning and come to the office as early as possible so that I don't have to get kids ready for school.
Okay. That's fair enough.
So, no, it's a lot of work. I mean, all the kids are in school. They all, love sports, and different activities. Kai played football for a while. Elsa does cheerleading multiple times a week. Gray does golf, all the, lessons weekly as a coach, tournaments on the weekend that I caddy for them at. Huey and Liam, they want to play golf and do all these things. It's hard. It's a hard balance.
Yeah.
But we don't have a lot of free time. It's when everybody's finally in bed at about 9:00 and I can just decompress a little bit. It's pretty rare.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel about that? I mean, do you wish that you had more free time, that your career wasn't so demanding?
No, I mean, I like to stay busy. I mean, even if let's say I had enough money right now, I could retire and be done. I wouldn't, because I enjoy coming to work. I don't like to sit and do nothing. And so for me, it's that aspect. The hard work is never what worries me. The stress that I get from work has to do with caring about clients, and our employees and that kind of stuff. And so, I remember for years, and it's a little different now because I have different stresses, but when I was running cases, I would lay in bed at night, and I have a really good memory when it comes to when it comes to things. And so I could sit and lay in bed and visualize and see my client list and all the clients that were assigned, that I had was helping. And I would go through each client every night and think, okay, what's on my to-do list? What I need to do for that case, that client. And I did that for years.
Yeah.
And not being able to leave that at the office is hard.
Yeah.
It weighs on you. And that's the hard part about being a lawyer, is that, again, you're dealing with people that are going through a hard time. And if you have, the people that I want working at our firm are people that I know are going to care about that situation. And it just inherently, some of that goes home with you. And so being a lawyer, especially with what we do, is rewarding, but it's also, if you're not careful, can be very detrimental to your mental health because of the stresses of it.
What would you go back and do differently if you could talk to your younger self? What's something about your life that's been a challenge that you feel like you could have avoided or done differently?
I don't know if there's anything I really would have done differently. I think everything happens for a reason, but I don't, knowing what I know now and look, obviously I'm happy. I enjoy personal injury. I enjoy being a lawyer in that sense. If I was any other kind of lawyer, it never would have worked. I couldn't do divorces. I did a couple of those in law school, hated it. I couldn't do estate planning. I couldn't do business. I couldn't do criminal. For me, it was all about personal injury, plaintiff's work, the opportunity to be in a courtroom if I wanted to be, and then helping people. Look, personal injury attorneys, we get made fun of. In law school, if you tell people you want to be a personal injury attorney, they look at you like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Because we're ambulance chasers and all this stuff. But the reality is, to me, there's no nobler profession. I mean, people are calling us because bad things have happened to them that aren't their fault. The system doesn't care about them. Insurance companies don't care about them as much as they try and say they do. And they need help navigating that situation. And I mean, what more noble legal profession is there than helping somebody that's dealing with issues not their fault navigate that situation?
Yeah.
And come out better on the other end. And so I think it's this bad rap that personal injury attorneys get, or that, kind of the ambulance chaser mindset. I think, to me, that's a made up marketing ploy by insurance companies to make you feel bad for hiring a personal injury attorney, to make you feel bad for filing a claim on your insurance that you pay for.
And it works. It's super effective.
It's crazy to me, but, I think it's a great thing.
What about as a husband and a parent? What's some advice? I mean, you've been married now 13 years. You have 5 kids that range from teenagers down to 6. What advice would you go back and give yourself 15 years ago about being a husband and father? What have you learned?
I mean, just making sure your kids know you care about them and your wife knows. I mean, that's the hard thing about what we do, especially being a business owner, and having the stresses of not only legal work, but also making sure the business is working. Bringing that home is hard.
Yeah.
Having late hours is hard. I mean, we as business owners, we have the ability to leave if we need to. I take pride in that from a law firm, that we've always had the standard that if your family has something important happening, you need to be there. And we're okay with that. And so I've always tried not to miss, family events, dance recitals, golf tournaments, baseball games, things like that. But the harder part is being present when I'm home.
Yeah.
And not
mentally. Yeah.
Especially nowadays with phones and email and all that stuff, and not, it's hard not to take that home.
What do you do to try to turn the work brain off?
I mean, it's hard. I'm to the point now where I'm a little better at it, just being present with the family and things like that. But that was a hard aspect of my marriage and my family life for years. But it's just a matter of juggling and having family understand some of the, I look at them as blessings that we have, the successes that we've had, and the things that we're able to do and buy and enjoy are a result of that hard work.
Yeah.
And some of those stresses are going to come home. The hardest thing is when you're really stressed and you're short with your wife or short with the kids, and, then they feel that. Just making sure, your family knows you love them, and the things, looking back on it, I don't know that I want my kids to follow my footsteps into the law.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Because it's not a profession that, look, to be the best trial lawyer you can be is really hard if you want to have a successful family.
Yep.
It's a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice one or the other. So for me, trying to balance those things, be the best lawyer I can be, have the best law firm we can have, but also have an importance of success at home, that's the ultimate. But I don't want my kids, and every job has its stresses. Every career path has ups and downs, but there's something about the legal profession that can really take a toll on your mental health and your family that I don't know that I want my kids to have to deal with that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Tell me about what's the taco?
Oh, hey. So the taco, I don't know why you're asking about the taco. I love the taco. So for me, when I sleep at night, if I just sleep on my side or whatever, my back hurts from playing golf, I think. My low back lights up and I can't sleep. So I sleep with a comforter blanket that is under my neck and kind of props that kind of stuff. So it makes me sleep better. But early on with my young kids, it all started back with the twins. So when the twins were born, that was the most stressful time of my life. And it just so happens it's the time that I started the law firm, which seems crazy looking back on that. But we had a boy and girl twins, and we were a young, newly married couple. We had an 18-month-old and Kai. And I just remember at night, when night would come, I'd have anxiety because I was like, man, I'm not going to sleep. And I got to work tomorrow. And the firm's brand new. And also it was really hard. But I remember at night, in order to get some sleep, my wife would take Elsa, I would take Gray, and we were both assigned a kid. And to make it easier for me, I started out by just putting him in his car seat next to my bed and having my hand down and rocking him so he would stay asleep. But then as he got a little bit older, I then would put him up next to me, and I would take my comforter that I used for my neck, and I would kind of make a taco. And I would stick him in the taco and hold him like a little burrito taco thing.
He's like your little comfort stuffed animal.
And so And I don't sleep. I sleep so light that I was never worried about like rolling over on them or anything. But that has stuck with us as a family, that idea of the taco forever. And so even now, my youngest kids, Huey and Liam, they love at night when we read a book or whatever, they'll come and they'll want to lay in the taco.
Yeah.
And so that, yeah.
The taco.
My wife hates it, but
well,
but
sorry to bring up a sore subject. Is there anything else that you want people to know about you or the firm, or anything that you want to clarify about things that you've talked about today?
Gee, they sound like that's like the end of a deposition.
Sorry about that.
The answer for clients when you ask that question is no.
Nothing
I'm
further.
good. Everything I said was good.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's being a lawyer is amazing. Having the opportunity that we have to make an impact on our community through the things that we do individually and as a law firm, it's amazing. I'm very proud of our partnership and what we've built, the successes that we've all had, the successes that we're going to have, the lives that we've been able to build for our families and our staff and their families. And, one of my favorite books is called The Dream Manager. And I know I've told you about that book, but it's a great book. And it reminds me of the importance of not only with your own family, but the people around you understanding what people's dreams are. And then, especially as an employer and as a dad and a husband, being able to help facilitate those dreams. But in order to know, you got to know what they are. And you got to, and helping people realize those dreams. And I think the law firm, for me, is a catalyst for that. You know, to not only, again, provide a outstanding legal service to our clients, but also give the people that work for us the opportunity to be successful and to live their dreams. And I think that in the end is what life's all about.
Cool.
So,
well, I appreciate that. Thanks for taking the time to get on video and give our clients and people a chance to get to know you a little bit better. The man behind
it's
the
good.
name.
It's good to reflect. I wish, a lot of what we talked about is very serious.
Yeah.
I don't, and I've never been one to be overly, I guess, excitable. So I think the most excited I've ever gotten was when I passed the Utah bar.
Yeah.
And other than that, like even big settlements and big resolutions, I'm very even keel,
Yeah.
So no, it's telling the story and reminiscing about those times is awesome. So we've done a lot, and hopefully there's a lot more to come.